So, what are the biggest mistakes that we see business owners making with ChatGPT-5?
There's three big ones. Actually, the first mistake is over engineering your prompt. So people carry over the elaborate prompt structures they needed for older models. Those really elaborate prompt frameworks can actually be a little bit of overkill.
So, what does that look like in practice, though?
Yeah, so just like we talked about, the role is no longer that useful. So
Yeah.
whereas before you would say you are a marketing strategist, then they write three paragraphs about the role, the company background, the business challenges. Honestly, GPT-5 is probably smart enough to infer what it needs to know from the context that you give it. You don't really need to provide that role.
So, really, less is more as long as you're being very clear about the specific task.
Yeah, it's more about the objective and the strategy when you're communicating.
Yeah.
The second mistake I see is inconsistent instructions. I think this is probably the biggest mistake, and this one you have to be very careful of. Remember that surgical precision. If you say be brief in one part of your prompt, but then ask for detailed analysis in another prompt, GPT-5 is going to waste a lot of processing power trying to reconcile the contradiction.
So, it's basically just like giving someone conflicting directions because then they're going to spend ages trying to figure out what you actually wanted instead
Mhm.
of actually doing the work. It's that vagueness again. You need to be
Yeah.
really precise and very clear in what you're telling it.
Yeah, I go and test this out. I've done this before myself, where if I give it conflicting answers or conflicting instructions, see how much longer it takes and just churns through versus then writing the same prompt but removing the conflict, and it'll probably do it in a quarter of the time. The third mistake is underusing the context window.
Hmm.
So, sometimes we are still stuck in earlier modes where we're trying to trim everything down and give it only what's really relevant. With GPT-5, you can provide far more context. But remember, it's not going to fill in the blanks if you leave things unsaid. So if your prompt is incomplete, your output will be too.
Yeah. Whereas with ChatGPT-5, more context usually equals a better output because you're just
Mhm.
giving it more to work with, essentially.
Yeah, as long as it's the relevant context, yes. Now, I'm going to do a caveat to this because, to a certain extent, we've also talked about the ethical considerations. When you're using the
Yes.
API and you're getting charged on a per token basis, this may not be the path you want to go down. So, this is probably only going to be useful or relevant when you're doing some kind of ideating or brainstorming with the ChatGPT version where you're not limited.
I think we also need to caveat with something that we've talked about on a number of occasions, which is putting sensitive business information into ChatGPT if you are on the free version or the
Hmm.
lower paid versions, because actually, technically, it's not a safe environment. So,
Absolutely.
just something again to be aware of. And I'm going to add a fourth mistake that I think we've been seeing, which is not iterating. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but people
Hmm.
expect a perfect response on the first try. That's just not how it works. ChatGPT-5 is designed to be conversational. This is going to be something that we see coming up again and again with AI. It's designed to be conversational. You have a back and forth with it. So you
Hmm.
build on its responses and you ask follow up questions, you refine the output. It's very rare that it will give you the right response on the first go.
Yeah, great point. Again, think of it as a collaboration. It's not a vending machine that you're just going to get the perfect response the first time.